Ambassador Min-jun Kim sat in the massive council chambers and tried not to show his anger. Around him, dozens of alien species filled seats that stretched up to the ceiling like a giant stadium. Their voices echoed as they talked about trade routes and mining rights. Nobody was talking about Earth. This was the third month since humanity had joined the Galactic Council. Well, joined was not the right word. Earth had been given probationary status, which was the lowest rank possible. It was what they gave to species they thought were too primitive to matter. Min-jun watched as the Vorthak High Commander Zextar stood up. Zextar was 8 feet tall, with gray skin and 4 arms. His species controlled the largest military in the galaxy. When he spoke, everyone listened. "The Council recognizes the Vorthak Empire," said the speaker, a floating, jellyfish-like creature. "Thank you," Zextar said. His voice was deep and harsh. "I bring urgent news about the human situation." Min-jun felt his stomach tighten. The human situation. That was what they called Earth's requests for basic trade agreements and medical supplies. "Our intelligence has discovered troubling information," Zextar continued. "Humans show signs of psychological instability that could threaten galactic peace. They wage war against their own species. They show no empathy for suffering." Murmurs filled the chamber. Min-jun had heard this before. Most alien species had some form of telepathic or empathic connection. They could feel each other's emotions. The idea of beings who could not do this scared them. "What do you propose?" asked the speaker. "Earth must surrender all military assets within 48 standard hours," Zextar announced. "They will accept permanent, protective custody status. This means all human colonies will be supervised by Council forces. All human ships will be escorted. All human communications will be monitored." The chamber erupted in discussion. Min-jun heard several delegates calling it reasonable. Others worried it was too harsh. None of them asked what humans thought about it. Min-jun raised his hand. It took several minutes before the speaker noticed him. "The Council recognizes the human probationary representative," the speaker said with obvious reluctance. Min-jun stood up. At 6 feet tall, he was smaller than most aliens in the room. His black hair was neatly combed, and his blue diplomatic uniform was perfectly pressed. He looked calm and professional. "Thank you," Min-jun said. "I request a brief recess to consult with Earth about this proposal." Several aliens actually laughed. Councillor Velthos of the Zephyrian Trade Syndicate spoke without being recognized. "Consult about what?" Velthos said. "Your planet has chemical rockets and atomic bombs. What could you possibly do in 48 hours? More laughter echoed through the chamber. High Commander Zextar smiled, showing sharp teeth. "The human is welcome to waste time," Zextar said. "Perhaps Earth's leaders need time to understand they have no choice." 3 hours for consultation, the speaker decided. "Then we vote on the Vorthak proposal." Min-jun bowed politely. "Thank you for your consideration." He walked out of the chamber with steady steps. Behind him, he heard aliens making bets about whether humans would surrender immediately or try some pathetic resistance first. The odds heavily favored immediate surrender. Min-jun made his way to the small office Earth had been assigned. It was in the basement level, next to storage rooms. He locked the door and activated the quantum communication device hidden in his briefcase. The device looked like a simple tablet, but it used technology the Council did not know humans possessed. It connected instantly to Earth through quantum entanglement. Defense Minister Park So-young appeared on the screen. She was in the war room, deep under Seoul. Behind her, Min-jun could see dozens of military officers working at stations. "Min-jun," Park So-young said, "I saw the transmission from the council session." Zextar made his move. 48 hours to surrender everything, Min-jun confirmed. "Full protective custody. They want to turn us into pets." Park So-young nodded. "Are you ready to proceed?" Min-jun thought about the last 3 months. Every meeting where aliens treated humans like children. Every request for medical supplies That was denied. Every time they had been told to wait their turn while other species received everything they asked for. He thought about the intelligence reports he had been sending home. Details about alien technology, military capabilities, and most importantly, their psychology. Every species in the Council had evolved with empathic connections. They literally could not understand beings who could fight without feeling their enemy's pain. That was about to become a serious problem for them. Yes, Minjun said. Park So-young leaned forward. Protocol 7 is now authorized. Admiral Lee sends her regards. The connection ended. Minjun put the device away and sat quietly for a moment. In military bases around Earth, he knew the order was being received. Ships that had been hidden in the outer solar system would begin moving into position. Weapons systems that the aliens did not know existed would come online. For decades, humanity had been preparing for this day. Every crashed alien scout ship had been studied. Every piece of technology had been reverse engineered. Every diplomatic meeting had been an intelligence-gathering operation. The aliens thought humans were primitive, because that was what humans had wanted them to think. Earth's real capabilities had been carefully hidden. The Council's intelligence reports were based on staged demonstrations and deliberate misdirection. Minjun returned to the Council chamber exactly 3 hours later. The aliens were still discussing the proposal among themselves. Most seemed to think it was generous to give humans any choice at all. The human representative returns, announced the speaker. What is Earth's response to the Vorthak proposal? Minjun walked to the center of the chamber. Every alien eye was on him. He looked small and insignificant among the towering alien delegates. Earth formally rejects the proposal, Minjun said clearly. We decline protective custody status. We will not surrender our military assets. We will not accept Council supervision of our colonies or communications. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then, High Commander Zextar began laughing. Soon, other aliens joined in. Brave little human, Zextar said. Your planet will learn the price of defiance. I will personally lead the fleet that teaches you humility. Minjun looked directly at the High Commander. I look forward to your visit. The vote to authorize military action against Earth passed 847 to 12. Only a few smaller species voted against it, and they did so quietly. As the session ended, aliens continued making jokes about human stubbornness. Several Vorthak officers were already discussing how quickly they could conquer Earth. The general consensus was that it would take less than a day. Minjun gathered his things and prepared to leave. As he walked past High Commander Zextar, the alien leader called out to him. Human, Zextar said. I hope your people enjoy their last few days of freedom. My fleet will be gentle with you if you surrender quickly. Minjun turned and smiled politely. High Commander, I hope you have said goodbye to your officers. Some of them will not be coming home. Zextar laughed so hard his forearms shook. Confident to the end. I admire that in prey. Minjun bowed and walked away. Behind him, the laughter continued. None of the aliens noticed the small smile on his face as he left the chamber. High Commander Zextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Times Dominator Asterisk. Through the massive viewing screen, he watched his fleet assemble in the void of space. 200 warships formed neat rows, their hulls gleaming under the light of distant stars. Status report, Zextar ordered. All vessels ready, High Commander, replied his aide. Sub-Commander Kethval. Fleet composition includes 47 battlecruisers, 86 destroyers, 52 escort frigates, and 15 support ships. Zextar nodded with satisfaction. It was massive overkill for dealing with one primitive planet. But the Council wanted to make an example of the humans. Besides, it would be good training for his younger officers. What do we know about human military capabilities? He asked. Intelligence, Officer Morden pulled up a holographic display. Their technology is approximately 300 years behind current galactic standards. They use chemical rockets for space travel. Their weapons are based on nuclear fission and fusion. Their largest ships are barely 100 meters long. The display showed images of human military equipment, primitive fighter jets, simple missiles, and crude space stations orbited around Earth. Everything looked exactly as expected from a species that had only recently developed interstellar travel. "Any defensive systems?" Zextar asked. "Minimal," Morden replied. "They have some orbital platforms and missile batteries, but nothing that could challenge even our oldest ships. Our estimates suggest complete planetary surrender within 4 hours of arrival." Zextar's forearms crossed behind his back as he studied the data. The humans had shown surprising courage in rejecting the Council's generous offer. But courage meant nothing without the power to back it up. "Sir," Kethval said, "some officers wonder if we are using too much force. 200 ships against one small planet seems excessive." "Better excessive than insufficient," Zextar replied. "The Council wants this ended quickly. We cannot afford to look weak in front of other primitive species who might get ideas." Meanwhile, in a deep bunker beneath Seoul, Admiral Lee Hae-jin watched her own status displays. Unlike the Council's intelligence reports, her screens showed the true state of human military readiness. "All stealth fleets report ready," announced Captain Park Min-ho from the communications station. "Outer Rim squadrons are in position. Defense platforms are online." Lee Hae-jin was a small woman, even by human standards, but her presence filled the command center. At 50 years old, she had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. Every exercise, every simulation, every strategic plan had led to this day. "Dr. Yoon, give me your final assessment of alien psychology," she ordered. Dr. Yoon Sang-ho looked up from his research station. He was the galaxy's leading expert on xenopsychology, though the aliens had never known he existed. "All Council species evolved with empathic or telepathic connections," he began. "They literally feel each other's emotions during combat. This creates several critical weaknesses." He activated a holographic brain scan, showing human neural patterns compared to alien ones. First, they cannot understand strategic thinking that involves deception or misdirection. Their empathic nature makes it almost impossible to lie effectively, so they do not expect it from others. Second, he continued, their warfare is ritualistic and honor-based. They fight to prove dominance, not to achieve total victory. The concept of fighting to completely destroy an enemy is alien to them. Third, and most importantly, they have never encountered a species that can kill without feeling the emotional cost. Every battle causes them psychological trauma because they experience their enemy's fear and pain. Admiral Lee nodded. And our advantages? We are completely invisible to their empathic senses. We can plan and execute strategies they cannot predict or counter. Most importantly, we can fight with absolute emotional detachment while still understanding the full weight of our actions. Weapons status? Lee asked. All quantum tunneling torpedoes are armed and ready, reported Commander Song Min-ah. Temporal displacement fields are calibrated. Absolute zero energy drains are charged. What about the demonstration ship? The Times Soul's Pride Times is in position in the Kuiper Belt. All systems optimal. Admiral Lee turned to the main display, which showed the approaching Vorthak fleet. They were still 3 days away from Earth, moving at what they considered a threatening pace. In reality, human ships could cover the same distance in minutes. They have no idea what they're walking into, Lee said quietly. The truth was that humanity had been preparing for galactic contact for over 60 years. The first crashed alien scout ship had actually been captured intact in 1987. Every piece of technology had been carefully studied, reverse-engineered, and improved upon. While Earth's diplomats showed the galaxy primitive chemical rockets and basic nuclear weapons, The real human fleet operated in complete secrecy. Ships that could bend space-time itself, weapons that could eliminate matter at the quantum level, and shields that could deflect any known energy weapon. The deception had been perfect. Every alien diplomat, every trade delegation, every cultural exchange had seen exactly what humanity wanted them to see. Meanwhile, the real preparations took place in hidden facilities scattered across the solar system. "Ma'am," Captain Park said, "we are receiving updates from our embassy ships throughout Council space. All human diplomatic personnel are reporting unusual alien military movements." "Expected," Lee replied. "They think they are about to witness a quick demonstration of Council power. Instead, they will see something that has never happened in galactic history." Dr. Yoon looked up from his console. "Admiral, I have completed the psychological profile on High Commander Zex Tar. He is a traditional Vorthok warrior. Honor-bound, direct, in combat, believes in overwhelming force. He has never lost a battle because he has never faced real opposition. Weaknesses? His greatest strength is also his greatest weakness. He believes that superior numbers and firepower always win. He cannot conceive of an enemy that might be technologically superior while appearing inferior." Admiral Lee studied the tactical display. The Vorthak fleet was impressive by galactic standards. Their ships were large, heavily armed, and operated by experienced crews. Against any other species in the galaxy, they would be unstoppable. Against humanity, they would not last 20 minutes. "Ma'am," Commander Song reported, "long-range sensors detect the Vorthak fleet entering our outer detection grid. They will reach Neptune's orbit in 72 hours. Any attempts at communication?" High Commander Zex Tar broadcast a general message demanding immediate surrender. "He promises to be merciful if Earth yields now." Admiral Lee allowed herself a small smile. "Did he really?" "Yes, ma'am. He seems quite confident. Confidence is good in a warrior. Overconfidence is fatal." She turned to address the entire command center. Over 200 officers and technicians looked up from their stations. "Ladies and gentlemen, in 72 hours we will make first contact with hostile alien forces. This is what we have trained for our entire careers. This is what our species has prepared for since we first looked up at the stars." The room was completely silent. "The enemy believes we are primitive and weak. They believe our weapons are crude and our ships are slow. They believe we will surrender at the first show of force." She paused and looked around the room at faces she had known for years. These were the finest military minds humanity had ever produced, and they were about to change the course of galactic history. They are wrong about everything except one thing. We are dangerous. We are more dangerous than they can possibly imagine. And in 72 hours, they are going to learn exactly how dangerous humans can be when cornered. The command center erupted in controlled activity as the final preparations began. Status reports flowed in from hidden bases throughout the solar system. Weapon systems that had been tested in secret for decades came online. Ships that existed only in classified files began moving into attack positions. High above Earth, what appeared to be simple communication satellites began reconfiguring themselves into something far more deadly. In the asteroid belt, mining stations revealed their true nature as mobile weapons platforms. At the edge of the solar system, objects the aliens had dismissed as space debris powered up fusion reactors that had been dormant for years. Admiral Lee Hai-jin watched it all and felt a mixture of pride and sadness. Humanity was about to reveal itself to the galaxy. And the galaxy was going to learn that appearances could be very deceiving. The Vorthak fleet continued its approach, confident in their superiority and eager to demonstrate galactic power to a primitive species. They had no idea they were flying into the most sophisticated trap in military history. In less than 3 days, the balance of power in the galaxy would change forever. High Commander Zex Tar stood confidently on his bridge as the Vorthak fleet entered Earth's solar system. Around him, His officers worked at their stations with the calm efficiency of experienced warriors. They had done this many times before with other primitive worlds. Long-range sensors detect the human planet, reported Intelligence Officer Morden. No sign of fleet movement or organized resistance. What about their orbital defenses? Zextar asked. Minimal, as expected. We detect approximately 50 small satellites and 3 crewed space stations. Their largest installation appears to be some kind of communications array. Through the main viewer, Earth appeared as a small blue dot, surrounded by the tiny lights of human orbital infrastructure. It looked peaceful and defenseless. Exactly what Zextar had expected from a species using chemical rockets. Open a channel to the human government, he ordered. Let us give them one final chance to surrender. Channel open, High Commander. Zextar activated the broadcast system. His voice would reach every human communication device on the planet. People of Earth, I am High Commander Zextar of the Vorthak Empire. You are completely surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now, and you will be treated with mercy. Resist and face the full power of the Galactic Council. He waited for a response. Minutes passed in silence. Sir, Kethval said, we are receiving a transmission from the human government. Put it through. The main screen showed a middle-aged human woman in a military uniform. She sat behind a simple desk, with the Earth flag displayed behind her. Her expression was calm and professional. High Commander Zextar, I am Admiral Lee Hyejin of the United Earth Defense Force. Your terms are rejected. Please leave our solar system immediately. Zextar laughed, his forearms spreading wide. Admiral? You humans are amusing. Tell me, Admiral, how many ships do you command? Enough, Lee replied simply. I command 200 warships, Zextar said. Each one could destroy your entire planet. This is your final warning. Admiral Lee leaned forward slightly. High Commander, this is your final warning. Leave now, or face the consequences. The transmission ended. Zextar stared at the blank screen for a moment, then began laughing again. His officers joined in. Such courage from such a small creature, he said. Very well. All ships, advance to attack formation. Target their orbital installations first. Let them see what real power looks like. The Vorthak fleet moved forward in perfect formation. 200 warships arranged in a massive wall of death, their weapons charging and shields at full power. It was an impressive sight that had convinced countless worlds to surrender without fighting. Deep in her command bunker, Admiral Lee watched the alien fleet approach. Her officers worked quietly at their stations, making final preparations for what was about to happen. Enemy fleet has crossed the orbit of Mars, reported Captain Park Minho. They are maintaining standard attack formation. Any changes to their sensor sweeps? Lee asked. Negative. They are still scanning for primitive chemical rockets and basic nuclear weapons. Our stealth systems are holding perfectly. Lee nodded. The aliens had no idea that human technology had advanced far beyond what they had been shown. Every sensor reading, every intelligence report, every demonstration had been carefully crafted to maintain the illusion of primitive capabilities. Dr. Yoon, final psychological assessment. Dr. Yoon Sang-ho looked up from his monitoring station. High Commander Zextar is displaying classic Vorthok overconfidence. He genuinely believes this will be a simple demonstration of superior firepower. His crew is relaxed and casual. They have no idea what they are flying into, Lee said quietly. Ma'am? Commander Song-min-ah called out. Enemy fleet is now within engagement range. All hidden platforms report ready. The Times Soul's Pride Times requests permission to begin the demonstration. Admiral Lee took a deep breath. In the next few minutes, humanity would reveal its true capabilities to the galaxy for the first time. There would be no going back after this. Permission granted, she said. Light them up. Throughout the solar system, objects the aliens had dismissed as primitive satellites suddenly came alive. Quantum stealth fields dropped away to reveal weapons platforms that dwarfed the largest Vorthak ships. Fusion reactors that had been carefully hidden from alien sensors roared to full power. The first salvo came from 12 platforms hidden among the asteroids between Mars and Earth. Quantum tunneling torpedoes materialized inside Vorthak ships, bypassing shields and armor completely. 17 alien vessels simply ceased to exist as their molecular bonds were dissolved at the quantum level. "What?" Zextar shouted as his sensors registered the impossible. "Where did those weapons come from?" Before anyone could answer, the second wave hit. Energy beams that manipulated matter at the atomic level struck 30 more ships. The Vorthak vessels didn't explode. They simply stopped being solid matter. Their atoms scattered across space like cosmic dust. "Evasive maneuvers," Zextar ordered. "All ships, return fire." The Vorthak fleet began firing their plasma cannons and particle beams at the human platforms. The energy weapons struck their targets but simply dissipated against shields that bent space-time itself. "Impossible," Morden whispered. Their technology readings showed primitive nuclear weapons. "They lied to us," Zextar realized with growing horror. "They made us think they were weak." The third wave of human attacks came from what the aliens thought was empty space. Cloaked ships that had been invisible to all sensors suddenly appeared around the Vorthak fleet. These were not the crude chemical rockets the intelligence reports described. They were sleek vessels that moved faster than anything in the alien fleet. Admiral Lee watched the battle unfold on her tactical display. Red dots, representing Vorthak ships, vanished with mechanical precision as human weapons found their targets. 17 minutes, she announced to her command staff. "At this rate, the entire enemy fleet will be eliminated in 17 minutes. On his bridge, High Commander Zextar watched his proud fleet die around him. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were being destroyed by weapons they could not even see clearly. His tactical officer reported that over half the fleet was already gone. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "How can they move so fast? How can they penetrate our shields?" "Sir," Kethval said urgently, "we are receiving distress calls from across the fleet. Our crews are reporting that the human weapons cause no pain. The ships just stop existing." Zextar felt a chill run through his 4 hearts. In Vorthak culture, death in battle was honorable because the dying warrior felt the struggle and the final moment. But these weapons gave no warning, no sensation of battle. They simply erased life without ceremony. "Request immediate reinforcement from the Council fleet," he ordered. "Tell them we need every available ship." "Already done, sir. 3 additional battle groups are en route. Admiral Velthari is personally commanding the relief force." "How long until they arrive?" 6 hours, sir." Zextar looked at his tactical display. At the current rate of loss, his entire fleet would be gone in 10 minutes. 6 hours might as well be 6 centuries. "All remaining ships, full retreat," he ordered. "Break formation and scatter. Maybe some of us can survive to warn the others." But there was no retreat from human weapons. The quantum tunneling torpedoes followed fleeing ships across the solar system, materializing inside their hulls, regardless of speed or evasive maneuvers. The energy drains simply reached out and turned matter back into basic atoms, making escape impossible. Admiral Lee watched the last Vorthak ship disappear from her sensors. The entire enemy fleet had been eliminated in exactly 17 minutes and 32 seconds. Not a single human ship had taken damage. "All platforms report successful engagement," Captain Park announced. "0 enemy survivors detected." 2. "What about the reinforcements?" Lee asked. 3 Council battle groups approaching at maximum speed. Estimated arrival in 5 hours and 40 minutes. Total enemy strength: 450 vessels from 7 different species. Lee nodded. The Council was committing everything they had to what they thought would be a rescue mission. Instead, they were flying into an even larger demonstration of human military superiority. Bring the Time Soul's Pride times out of stealth, she ordered. It's time to show them what one human ship can do against an entire fleet. Throughout the galaxy, every major government was monitoring the situation around Earth. What they saw defied everything they thought they knew about human capabilities. A primitive species with chemical rockets had just destroyed the most powerful military fleet in Vorthak history without sustaining a single casualty. In the council chambers, emergency sessions were called as reports flooded in from the battle. Species that had mocked human weakness just days before now stared at sensor readings that made no sense. The balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted completely, and the aftershocks were only beginning. The Galactic Council chambers had never been this quiet. For the first time in over 1,000 years of galactic civilization, the Great Hall was completely silent. Representatives from dozens of species sat in their seats without speaking, staring at the central display that showed the aftermath of the battle at Earth. Where the proud Vorthak fleet had been, there was now only empty space and scattered particles. 200 warships. Gone in 17 minutes. No wreckage. No survivors. Just silence where an entire fleet used to be. Council Speaker Vex Tai floated in the center of the chamber, its jellyfish-like form pulsing with distressed patterns. It had been trying to call the session to order for 20 minutes, but no one was paying attention. They were all too busy trying to understand what they had just witnessed. The emergency session will come to order, Vex Tai announced again. Its voice echoed in the vast chamber. But still, no one moved. In his seat in the far corner, Ambassador Min-jun Kim sat quietly and waited. He had arrived 30 minutes ago, walking through the same doors he had used every day for 3 months. The same guards had checked his credentials. The same diplomatic protocol had been followed. But everything was different now. When he had first entered the chamber, every alien head had turned to look at him. The creature who had once been ignored now commanded the attention of every being in the room. Some stared with fear, others with confusion, a few with something that looked like respect. We need to discuss the situation at Earth, Vex Tai tried again. Councillor Velthos of the Zephyrian Trade Syndicate finally spoke. His voice was barely a whisper. How is this possible? Our intelligence reports said they had chemical rockets. The intelligence was wrong, said Admiral Zendar of the Altarian Republic. Or, we were deceived. All eyes turned to Min-jun, who sat calmly in his chair. He had not spoken since arriving, but his presence filled the chamber like a dark storm cloud. The same human who had been mocked just 3 days ago now represented a power that had just eliminated the galaxy's most feared military force. Human representative, Vex Tai said carefully. The Council requests an explanation of recent events. Min-jun stood up slowly. He looked exactly the same as always. Neat black hair, pressed diplomatic uniform, calm professional demeanor. But now his silence felt threatening instead of insignificant. Recent events, Min-jun repeated. You mean the unprovoked attack on Earth by Vorthak forces? Unprovoked? Sputtered Councillor Morketh of the Hegemony Coalition. The Council voted to authorize protective custody. It was a legal action. The Council voted to invade a sovereign world without declaration of war, Min-jun replied. Earth responded to military aggression with appropriate defensive measures. Defensive? Velthos' voice cracked. You eliminated an entire fleet in minutes. Yes, Min-jun said simply. We did. The chamber fell silent again. That simple admission carried more weight than any threat or boast. The human had just calmly confirmed that his species possessed military technology beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Emergency Coordinator Zalnos of the Emergency Response Coalition activated a holographic display showing the battle data. Ship positions, energy readings, and debris patterns filled the air above the center of the chamber. According to our sensors, human weapons operated on principles we do not understand, Zalnos said. They bypassed shields and armor completely. They left no wreckage or survivors. Some ships simply stopped existing. "How long has your species possessed this technology?" demanded Admiral Zendar. Min Jun looked at the alien admiral with calm eyes. "How long has your species been watching us? That is not relevant to—" 63 years, Min Jun interrupted. "Your first scout ship entered our solar system 63 years ago. We have been observing and learning ever since." More silence filled the chamber as the implications sank in. For over 6 decades, humanity had been studying alien technology while pretending to be primitive. Every diplomatic contact, every cultural exchange, every intelligence-gathering mission had been turned against the galaxy itself. "You deceived us," whispered Counselor Thexvar of the Scientific Alliance. "We showed you what you expected to see," Min Jun replied. "You assumed we were primitive because we were new. You never questioned your assumptions." Speaker Vextai pulsed with agitated patterns. "The Council battle groups en route to Earth. What will happen to them? That depends entirely on their intentions," Min Jun said. "If they come to attack Earth, they will be treated as the previous fleet was treated. If they come to negotiate, they will be received with appropriate diplomatic courtesy." The threat was clear without being stated directly. 450 additional ships were flying toward what they thought was a rescue mission. Instead, they were heading into the same trap that had destroyed the Vorthak fleet. "This changes everything," Admiral Zendar said quietly. "The entire balance of galactic power has shifted." Min Jun finished. "Yes, it has." Council Intelligence Director Yavthos activated his own display showing star charts and territorial boundaries. "If human technology is this advanced, your species could project force anywhere in the galaxy. No world would be safe from your reach." "That is correct," Min Jun confirmed. "We could." The admission sent waves of fear through the chamber. Species that had dominated the galaxy for millennia suddenly realized they were no longer the apex predators. "What do you want?" Velthos asked desperately. "What are human intentions for galactic expansion?" Min Jun considered the question carefully. "Earth formally withdraws its application for council membership. We will establish our own territories in the outer rim sectors. Any species that wishes to establish diplomatic or trade relations may approach us as equals." "And if we refuse?" demanded Morketh. "Then you refuse," Min Jun said. "Humanity has no interest in conquest or empire. We simply want to be left alone to develop our own civilization. But your military capabilities will be used only against those who threaten human territory or human lives. We are not conquerors. We are defenders." Dr. Whelan of the Psychological Studies Institute spoke for the first time. Her species specialized in understanding the mental patterns of other races, and her analysis was deeply troubling. "Your species eliminated the Vorthak fleet with complete efficiency. No mercy, no hesitation, no emotional cost. How is this possible? How can you kill so effectively without feeling the pain of your enemies?" Min Jun looked at her with something that might have been sympathy. "Because we understand the full weight of what we are doing, and we choose to do it anyway. That is what makes us dangerous." The chamber erupted in frightened whispers. Every species in the council had empathic or telepathic connections that made them feel their enemies' suffering during battle. The idea of beings who could inflict death without sharing the emotional cost was their worst nightmare made real. "The relief fleets," Vextai said urgently. "They must be warned. They cannot be allowed to attack Earth." "Send the recall order," Admiral Zendar agreed. "Tell them to maintain position, but take no aggressive action." Min Jun watched as emergency orders went out to the approaching battle groups. 450 ships representing 7 different species received simultaneous commands to stop their advance and await further instructions. "They will comply?" he asked. "They will," Vextai assured him. "No one wants to face human weapons after seeing what happened to the Vorthak fleet." Min Jun nodded. "Wise." Counselor Velthos leaned forward in his seat. What happens now? How do we proceed from this point? That is entirely up to you, Minjun replied. Humanity will establish our own territories and our own alliances. Species that treat us with respect will find us valuable partners. Species that threaten us will discover why that is unwise. And the council? Minjun looked around the chamber at faces filled with fear, confusion, and growing respect. These were the same beings who had laughed at human requests for basic trade agreements just 3 days ago. The council can continue to govern those species that choose to remain members. Human space will be governed by humans. We see no conflict between these arrangements. The species per blam. The species per blam. The species per blamen with 41. I have a nodimenter Cesar. Your technology, Dr. Waylan pressed. Will you share it? Will you help defend the galaxy against outside threats? That depends on how the galaxy treats us going forward, Minjun said. Mutual respect leads to mutual cooperation. Threats lead to consequences. The session continued for 3 more hours, but the essential business was finished. The galaxy had learned that humanity was not the primitive species they had appeared to be. Earth would not be joining the Council as a subordinate member. Instead, a new power had emerged that could project force anywhere in the galaxy. As the emergency session finally ended, representatives filed out of the chamber in small groups, whispering urgently among themselves. Plans would have to be changed. Treaties would need to be renegotiated. The entire structure of galactic civilization had just shifted beneath their feet. Minjun gathered his things and prepared to leave. As he reached the door, Speaker Vextai called out to him. Ambassador Kim, it said, one final question. Minjun turned back. Yes? When you first arrived 3 months ago, did you know this would happen? Minjun considered the question. We knew it was a possibility. Your species have a pattern of testing newcomers, with shows of force. We prepared accordingly. And if we had accepted you as equals from the beginning, then none of this would have been necessary, Minjun replied. Good day, Speaker. He walked out of the chamber, leaving behind a galaxy that would never be the same. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, Ambassador Minjun Kim stood in his new office on Haven Station. The massive space station floated at the edge of what was now called the Terran boundary, marking the border between human space and the rest of the galaxy. Through the wide viewport, he could see ships from a dozen different species docked at the station's many ports. Altarian research vessels, Zephyrian trade ships, and even a few small Vorthak courier craft moved carefully through the docking patterns. All of them had requested permission to enter human space. All of them had been granted safe passage. The galaxy had changed dramatically in just 6 months. Ambassador, his aide, Commander Song Mina, said as she entered the office. The quarterly trade reports are ready for your review. Also, the Altarian Republic has requested a meeting about their membership application. Minjun turned from the viewport and accepted the data tablet. Membership? Application? They want to join the Terran Compact, Song explained. That makes 17 species total requesting alliance with humanity. Minjun reviewed the list of applicants. Most were smaller species that had been dominated or ignored by the old Galactic Council. The Altarians, however, were a major power with significant military and economic resources. Schedule the meeting, he decided. But make it clear that membership in the Compact requires acceptance of human leadership in defense matters. Understood, sir. The Terran Compact had formed naturally in the months following Earth's demonstration. Species that wanted protection from the traditional galactic powers found safety in alliance with humanity. The Compact offered mutual defense, free trade, and equal representation in most matters. But when it came to military decisions, humanity maintained final authority. Any word from the old council? Minjun asked. They are still trying to reorganize, Song replied. Several major species have withdrawn from council membership and established independent territories. The hegemony coalition is basically dissolved. Minjun nodded. The traditional power structure of galactic civilization had collapsed when the Council failed to respond effectively to humanity's rise. Without the military dominance they had always relied on, many of the older powers found themselves unable to maintain their influence. Sir, Song continued, there is one more matter. We have received a personal message from Sub-Commander Kethval of the Vorthak Remnant. He requests permission to visit Earth. This was unexpected. Kethval was one of the few Vorthok officers who had survived the destruction of their fleet. He had been commanding a scout ship outside the main battle area when the human attack began. What does he want? He says he wants to honor the dead and ask a question. Minjun considered this request. The Vorthok had been the most aggressive opponents of humanity, but they had also suffered the greatest losses. Of their once mighty fleet, only a handful of ships remained. Grant permission, he decided, but escort him to Earth personally. I want to hear this question myself. 3 days later, Minjun stood in Arlington National Cemetery watching an alien warrior place flowers on the tomb of the unknown soldier. Sub-Commander Kethval was smaller than his former commander had been, but he carried himself with the dignity of a professional soldier. Thank you for allowing me to come here, Kethval said in carefully pronounced English. I wanted to see how humans honor their war dead. Why? Minjun asked. Because I need to understand. The Vorthak replied. My people have always believed that death in battle is meaningless, unless it teaches the living something valuable. They walked quietly through the cemetery, past thousands of graves marking human soldiers from dozens of conflicts. Kethval stopped to read some of the inscriptions, his 4 hands clasped respectfully behind his back. You said you had a question, Minjun prompted. Yes, Kethval said. When your ships destroyed our fleet, they could have stopped at any time. You had proven your superiority within the first few minutes, but you continued until every ship was eliminated. Minjun waited for the actual question. Why did you stop when you did? Why not pursue our retreating ships to their homeworlds? Why not eliminate the Vorthak species entirely? It was a reasonable question from a military perspective. Humanity had demonstrated overwhelming technological superiority. They could have pressed their advantage and conquered the entire Vorthak Empire within weeks. Because we got what we came for, Minjun replied simply. Which was respect. Kethval considered this answer as they continued walking. Respect. Not conquest, not territory, not resources. Just respect. That is all humanity ever wanted from the galaxy, Minjun confirmed. We wanted to be treated as equals, to trade freely, to pursue our own development without interference. And when the Council refused to give you respect, we took it. They reached a section of the cemetery dedicated to unknown soldiers from various wars. Kethval stopped and studied the simple markers that acknowledged sacrifice without naming the specific individuals. In Vorthak culture, we believe that strength must be proven through dominance, he said slowly. The strong rule the weak. It is the natural order. And now? Now the Vorthak are weak, and humans are strong. By our own beliefs, you should rule us. Minjun shook his head. Humanity has no interest in ruling others. We want to be left alone to develop our own civilization and help our allies develop theirs. But you could conquer us easily. Yes, Minjun agreed. So why do you not? Minjun stopped walking and looked directly at the alien warrior. Because conquering, you would not make us stronger. It would just make us responsible for your problems, as well as our own. Kethval's 4 eyes blinked in surprise. This concept seemed genuinely alien to him. Your species believes that power exists to be used, Minjun continued. Humans believe that true power is knowing when not to use it. They resumed walking, passing monuments to various human conflicts. Kethval read the inscriptions with growing fascination. These memorials, he said finally, they do not celebrate victory, they mourn loss. War is always a loss, Minjun replied. Even when you win. But humans are so efficient at it. Your weapons, your tactics, your complete emotional control during battle. We are efficient because we understand the cost. Every life taken, every ship destroyed, every family that loses someone, we feel the weight of all of it. That is why we fight to end conflicts quickly, rather than prolonging them. Kethval stopped walking entirely. You feel the weight of our deaths, even though we were your enemies? Especially because you were our enemies. Taking a life in self-defense is sometimes necessary, but it is never something to celebrate. For several minutes, they stood in silence among the graves. Kethval seemed to be processing concepts that challenged everything his species believed about warfare and power. I think I understand now, he said finally. Humans are dangerous not because you enjoy violence, but because you understand it completely. That is correct. And you stopped pursuing our retreating ships because you had achieved your objective. Yes. What would have happened if we had regrouped and attacked Earth again? Minjun's answer was simple and direct. You would have been completely destroyed. And if we had threatened human colonies? Same result. And if we had attacked your allies? Same result. Kethval nodded slowly. So, the choice is coexistence or extinction. That has always been the choice. The galaxy just did not understand the stakes until we demonstrated them. As they prepared to leave the cemetery, Kethval had one final question. What does the Vorthak remnant need to do to earn human acceptance? Stop threatening others, Minjun replied. Develop your own territory peacefully. If you can do that, humanity will have no quarrel with you. And if we want to join the Terran Compact? That would require unanimous approval from all current members. Given your species' history, it would take time to build trust. How much time? That depends entirely on your actions going forward. 6 months later, Minjun received a report that surprised him. The Vorthak remnant had requested membership in the Galactic Peace Initiative, a new organization dedicated to preventing conflicts between species. They had also established trade relationships with 3 compact members and had begun sharing their military technology for defensive purposes only. Sub-Commander Kethval had been promoted to Supreme Commander of the Vorthak Remnant and had instituted major reforms in their military doctrine. Instead of conquest and domination, they now focused on defense and mutual cooperation. The galaxy is learning, Admiral Li Heijin said during their monthly briefing. She had been promoted to Supreme Commander of all human military forces and was based at the new naval headquarters on Luna. Some species are learning, Minjun corrected. Others are still trying to maintain the old ways. The old ways do not work anymore, Li replied. Humanity has changed the rules of the game permanently. Have we made the galaxy better or worse? Minjun asked. Li considered the question carefully. Different. We have made it different. Whether that is better or worse depends on what each species chooses to do with the new reality. Through the viewport of Haven Station, Minjun watched ships from dozens of species conducting peaceful trade and cultural exchange. The Terran Compact now included 23 members, representing over a third of known galactic civilization. The old Galactic Council still existed, but with greatly reduced influence. Most importantly, no major conflicts had occurred in the 6 months since the Battle of Earth. Species that had once dominated others through force were now seeking alliances and partnerships. The galaxy was more peaceful than it had been in centuries. Do you think it will last? Song Mina asked as she joined him at the viewport. Peace is not a destination, Minjun replied. It is a choice that must be made every day by every species. And if someone chooses war? Minjun smiled grimly. Then they will learn, as the Vorthak learned, that there are consequences to that choice. In the distance, a human patrol ship glided silently through space, its weapons powered down but ready. It was a quiet reminder that while humanity preferred peace, they were fully prepared for war. The galaxy had learned to respect human strength. Now it would learn to value human wisdom. The future remained unwritten, but for the first time in centuries, it was being written by choice rather than force. And in a small cemetery on Earth, flowers left by a former enemy continued to bloom on the graves of unknown soldiers, a symbol of understanding that transcended species and conflict. The galaxy had changed forever, and for most species, that change had been for the better.